Welcome to the Shape podcast, where ideas take shape. I'm Shelley. I'm the brand strategy and marketing director at The Shape, and I'm here with Paul Harrison, the creative visionary behind our brand magic. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, Shelley. Very excited to be on our first podcast with you and looking forward to the conversation.
Amazing. In this episode, we're diving into a hot topic for 2025 brand guidelines. Why they matter, how they're evolving, and what you need to know to keep your brand ahead of the curve.
It's a very key subject as we're approaching the end of the year and starting a new year. For those people out there who haven't got brand guidelines or haven't looked into them before, this conversation will expand on how it can help your brand, give you a foundation, and make life easier in general.
Absolutely. In a world where trends and platforms change faster than ever, staying consistent is the key to building trust and recognition. Paul, data suggests that 80% of consumers are more likely to trust a brand with a strong, consistent identity.
Very true, Shelley. I know myself when I go to meetings, presentations, and someone gives you a business card or a leaflet. When you get time, you go and check out their website or you'll check their LinkedIn profile, company page. And if they don't look the same, subconsciously something doesn't sit right. So it can put barriers in place from people working with you.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. So, if let's start with the basics. Why, in your opinion, are brand guidelines so important? I know you just gave us a brief roundup, but if you want to delve into it a little bit more in detail, especially as we approach 2025, why would you think all brands need to focus on having brand guidelines?
But the key thing is, we got a project before you started actually working here, Shelley, as well 3 years ago for a big building company. And we were contacted by the marketing manager, director from the company, saying she was so frustrated that their email footers, everyone's communications looked different and it wasn't reflecting well on the company. So we went in there and their brand guidelines document was about 50 odd pages because it came down to uniforms when they're on site, email footers, email signatures, the website which we designed for them, all these things in that brand guidelines, and it made her life easier. So she came to us because she was struggling to control that brand, and we've helped to do that.
Those are all really great points, and it does help to have all of those aspects, to keep the brand content aligned and brand messaging aligned. But as we see, especially in today's times, trends have shifted so much recently. What would you say is very different now compared to, say, 5 years ago?
I think there's so many different platforms now, and it's good in a way because clients or your business can speak to so many different age groups or different target audiences using these specific platforms. And if you don't have your brand guidelines in place, which you touched on, all these platforms might jar, or some of the platforms might jar. So it's key to make sure that consistency, which we mention all the time and we'll keep mentioning it, goes across all mediums, because it will jar with people that are looking at that and it might not present your brand in the best manner. So whether it's TikTok, you've got Snapchat now, we discussed this morning about where Spotify and the wrap-ups.
True,
So
true.
all these things come together, and if you can be consistent as a brand, visually and as a tone of voice, because there's different elements to the brand guidelines, it will help you so much engage with everybody across those platforms in the right tone of voice. It's a fascinating era we're in, and I think we'll probably come round to it further in the conversation about everyone's online now, everyone's doing lots of digital things there, and how it's going to start and creep back in, that people are going to want to meet again in person, and are starting to meet again in person. So when you do meet in person, is your business card consistent with your website, we said before? Are your marketing materials printed and digitally all aligned? So there's such a massive scope there, but coming back to that foundation of the consistency, it will help your business so much.
I couldn't agree more, actually. But if you have to say, give an example or a brand which would come to your mind who has nailed this consistency and stood out, which brand would you give as an example?
Well, a really good one, because people that are listening to this will have seen the BBC branding for the corporation online, on TV,
Right.
across all mediums there. And I think they've done an amazing job It was quite a shock to pick when they released it because it's very bright, it's very clean.
Right.
But over the years since they've done it now, you see the consistency on the trailers on the TV for new programs. With the pink BBC pops up, it's animated in there. You go to the website, they've got icons for different areas for the sport, for BBC
Right.
Sounds, and it all ties together so well. But it's simple, and simple things are the hardest to do. So I'll be a very good example from my point of view. I mean, what are your thoughts on the BBC website, Shelley?
I think I agree with all of your points, and I think consistency is one of the key components here. It keeps your messaging aligned through, and it increases brand recall value and trust value, all of those things, which I think are very important to be part of your brand guidelines once you're planning your marketing and your brand imaging strategy.
Yeah, no, so the BBC is a really good example. I mean, there's lots of good examples out there, but I would say just for the scale of it and the amount of work behind it to make sure it all works together, that's a really good way of looking at things. Anyone out there, if you haven't spent a lot of time on the BBC Sounds website, that's an amazing piece as well. Because I mean,
Correct.
there are a lot of people out there now that work on the computers all day,
Mm-hmm.
like yourself and myself. And the last thing I want to do in the night time, sometimes I don't want to watch TV, so I'll put BBC Sounds on, try and find a podcast, and you have so much amazing content on there. But if it wasn't presented or showcased in the right way, I wouldn't be going back and forth to it. But they've done a great job.
Absolutely agree with you. Um, moving forward, if we have to break this down and talk more about the essential components that every brand should have in their guidelines by 2025, what would you say should be the main components? For instance, to my mind, tone of voice, comes as one of the key components, and I feel a brand's voice should reflect who you are and resonate with your target audience. However, in today's times, how do you figure out the tone of voice? It is such a subjective topic. How do brands figure out what their tone of voice is to begin with?
The key thing is who figure out who your target audience is first, and then how can you engage with them. So it's pointless coming up with a very trendy, hip tone of voice if you're trying to speak to pensioners, for example. As a very simple way of looking at it.
Correct.
But for the brand guidelines, there's a lot of simple elements in there. Start, as you mentioned, the tone of voice there, your mission statement,
Hmm.
which is a really good place to start. If anyone's out there haven't got a mission statement yet, to try and get that paragraph which encompasses your values, your strategies in there, and that mission statement, and be happy with it yourselves. It has to represent you, your team, your tone of voice. So we've got a client which you work a lot on, Shelley. They've got a team of about 15 people. They've got
Hmm.
their mission statement off to a T. All
Correct.
the team have been involved in that. We've got their brand guidelines. We've updated them recently. We've done their website. We're doing a lot more stuff for next year as well. But
Right.
everyone's on board with that, and everyone feels part of that. So even the receptionist, when he picks her
Absolutely.
phone up there, she asks me for feedback on certain stuff. So it's a real team effort. So if you've got a team of people there, get them involved from a very early stage, owns the brand, understands the tone of voice, and they can present that for your business.
Absolutely. The tone of voice should reflect the entire company and what you stand for. So, yeah, tone of voice check. What would you say is next on the list?
The next one, your values, the brand values. So what
Hmm.
does the brand stand for? And again, do research, look at your competitors, see what their values are. But again, ask your team. I mean, at the Shape, we've looked at our values and we have the same tone of voice across everything we do. We're just finishing our quarter 4 update now. We've
Yeah.
been refining that together the last week. It's really exciting now because everything's singing from the same song sheet. Our values are in there, and
Yes.
we've given one page of that document to the charity we work with. It's a great charity. It's something we both support. We give our time going to events and helping them out there, and we're proud to present that. But we're also doing good work, and we get something out of it by the work we do, present that. So align yourself with a local charity or something your team believe in as well to help them out there. It's a nice way of doing it for your values.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I think having your company value is extremely important in as a brand image into your brand guidelines. sets the right tone, sets the right expectations, and the right kind of communication that you want to give out to the people in general, to your target audience in general. Um, Another very important thing I feel is visual identity. You know, Paul, logos, color palette, typography, imagery. A common trend, we're seeing a common mistake is chasing trends without considering long-term brand recognition. Um, be jump on the bandwagon and do what everyone is doing around you, even if it does not necessarily make sense to one's particular brand and the image. So balancing innovation and consistency, I feel, is also equally vital. What would be your tips for marketers, for companies, on this particular topic?
Well, the visual identity is just as important as the tone of voice, your values, etc. There, it's what the public are going to see as the first impression, or hear as the first impression. So keep it simple, step by step. I mentioned before about a 50-page brand guidelines for our building client. They're an established business. We went and did a brand overview, so they had a lot of things in place. But if you're a relatively new company, or you are 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, and you haven't got brand guidelines, start simply. It could be a 5 or 10-page document, which includes your mission statement, your tone of voice, your color palette. So think about, again, your target audience, what colors will resonate with them, what sector you're in. Because if you're in the tech sector, you'll have a different color palette from someone that's at care homes like we've got. Fonts, so have your main typefaces, your primary typefaces, then secondary typefaces. Because then for your headlines, for your body copy, etc. there, just a couple of pages on them. Again, they will evolve over the years. You'll get more and more pages in there for your fonts and colors as they expand. But
Right.
they're the core things to start with. Image style. So if you're going to do a brochure or a digital brochure, your website, don't just plonk images in there. Make sure the images all have a similar style. I mean, we work together very closely on the posts for the shape and for our clients, and we make sure that all the images are consistent. Not just the
Yes.
tone of voice, the images are consistent, the way they look and feel. So on the shape LinkedIn page there, you'll see the series we've got at the moment. We've done 3 posts for that, 4 posts for that. But all the images are different, but they all have the same look and feel. So
Right.
people know they're from the same brand. So your image style is a key one to put in there. And that just could be one page with a couple of images on there saying, to start with, this is our image style. From there, you've got your stationery, so your business cards and letterheads, whatever. If people still do them, we like giving things out and sending letters as well. So we have our business cards and we have our stationery, so they're all consistent. But that'll be a starting point for any business
I,
who haven't got their brand guidelines at the moment. But
uh,
now you can sorry, Shelley, I cut you off there. But as you know, you've got the digital side of things as well. So you might have certain parts in your brand guidelines for your LinkedIn company page, what that portal looks like. Might be for your Facebook page if it's relevant for your company. You've got YouTube channel now because video is so important. So your guidelines can be as big as small as you need, but just get something down to start with to expand on.
Absolutely agree. A brand's messaging roadmap should ensure every platform, be it Instagram, LinkedIn, email, or like you said, stationery, everything conveys a unified story. It's not about saying that you put the same thing everywhere, but a brand should just ensure that the underlying message aligns. And that wraps up all that you said very nicely.
Funny because we had a conversation yesterday, or last week. So you asked me to probably provide you with an updated header for your LinkedIn profile, the red shaped
Yes,
triangles with the white logo on there. And I gave you 3 options.
yes.
Uh, there's no rights and wrongs with any of those options there. You preferred the one with the tinted logo on there.
Hmm.
I put the red option on mine for consistency, but it didn't suit me.
Yeah,
I didn't feel it suit me. So yesterday I changed it back to the white triangles, but it's still in brand. It's still a different look and feel, but it's all part of the same structure. So
exactly.
you have to have variance in there. You can't be so regimented, but whatever feels right for you and each member of your team or for each section of your business, because there are sub brands under the main brand there. So it's got to feel right. And that's what the brand
Exactly.
guidelines are there to give you a foundation, but they're also flexible.
100%. And you've put it extremely well. This is exactly what we talk about all the time. And this is what we don't see in so many of the brands. They're all over the place, mixed messages, no consistency or alignment whatsoever. So let's move forward and let's talk about results. As per data, brands with consistent presentation are 3.5 times more likely to enjoy increased visibility. Would you agree? And what difference do strong brand guidelines make?
One of our clients, a commercial property company, they've reaped the rewards as well. Their team's grown we've worked with them for 14 years, and over the last year, they've hired 3 members of staff. All their materials online are getting more engagement. Their website's getting more engagement. So everything's working together now. It's all integrated, and they've seen a massive result from that within the projects they're getting. I mean, they did a project for 37 rent renewals with a huge global brand. So it's given them the platform to go to the next level. So 2 really good examples of having brand guidelines and not having brand guidelines. I know a designer who worked with a client. He was away on holiday for 2 weeks, and the client got an opportunity to do a really discounted full page advert in like a local newspaper or magazine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they said, send over your brand guidelines. The designer was on holiday, didn't have his laptop. It was before we were being really connected as we are now. And they missed the opportunity for what was a half price advert for their brand because they didn't have the basic brand guidelines there.
Right.
And then basically 2 years ago, I was on holiday and I got in touch, and I didn't need to get in touch with you. I didn't need to get in touch with anybody else there. The client had the brand guidelines there. They forward the brand guidelines across to the publisher, and they created the advert in-house. They didn't design it the way I would have designed it, but everything was, there was nothing wrong with it, if you know what I mean. So they had the assets
Absolutely.
to work with.
Sometimes missing small opportunities cost a lot.
They do,
And
they do.
yeah, these brand guidelines, that is why we see that are so important and vital for every company and every brand to have in place.
Right?
Are there any pitfalls to avoid when creating or updating guidelines, you'd say?
I mean, I feel, I'd say, don't get carried away and try and do too much too quickly. If you've already got a set of brand guidelines, that's a really good starting point to evolve and amend those. But again, look at what your company's trying to achieve over the next 18 months, 5 years, and then what elements need to be in those brand guidelines. And I mentioned before about that 50-page document. They had a large workforce. They had loads of sites for their business to be on there. So they wanted everything in there. They wanted uniforms, high-vis vests, all branded up there. So there was so many different sections to that. But have a look at what you want to achieve for 2025, for example, with your team and what's letting you down at the moment. So is it you haven't got consistent email signatures? Is it that your marketing team or when you're going out to meet new businesses haven't got the assets they need? So what elements do you need in your brand guidelines to make sure all those things are covered on there? So PowerPoint presentations, what do they look like? Do you have a template for those? Do you have a template for a PDF you send out there? I mean, we send out now a quarterly update. Our Q4 update will go out between Christmas and New Year, which this podcast is on. But once we've got that template in place and the brand guidelines in place for that, it makes life so much easier.
Hmm.
And with that commercial property company we work with, they've got brand guidelines there. They've got the primary color palettes. They've got the secondary color palettes there. So internally, they can do so much as well. So it saves time, money, and energy.
Absolutely right. So, just to wrap up, let's do a quick recap. Brand guidelines are your brand's playbook. They define your tone, visual identity, and messaging to ensure consistency across every touchpoint. As we move into 2025, the brands that succeed will be those that stay consistent yet adaptable. So, like we have been talking about, it's a fine balance, but it's one which is worth investing in. Thank you, Paul, for sharing your brilliant insights. This has been absolutely great. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you're ready to shape your brand for 2025, book an appointment with The Shape in the link below in our notes. We'd love to help you create brand guidelines that stand the test of time. Until next time, keep shaping ideas into reality. Bye for now.